This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. Andrew Berry and the Cleveland Browns just did a 35-minute press conference about the state of the Cleveland Browns, the state of the coaching staff, the state of some of its players, where they are. And I thought that there were a ton of really interesting tidbits from Andrew Berry's press conference in this setting. So I kind of wanted to do something different, which is to go through this press conference, highlight some of the things I think are interesting, and as they happen, kind of expand on this. I think this is something that's interesting. Every time I look at the comment section on one of these press conference videos, there's always a ton of people like, what does that mean? Or what were they trying to ask there? And I think this is a good way to kind of do that and have some fun with it. First thing that Andrew Berry talked about in this press conference and what he was asked about were his feelings on Kevin Stefanski. And I came out of this press conference pretty sure that, look, as long as Andrew Berry's in charge, and we expect him to be in charge for a very long time, Kevin's going to be here, because it's clear that all of these things have high opinions of another, right? I think Kev has a high opinion of Andrew Berry. I think Andrew has a very, very high opinion of Kevin Stefanski. I think DePodesta has a very high opinion of Andrew Berry. And I think Jimmy Haslam and D Haslam have a very high opinion in Andrew Berry, Kevin Stefanski, and DePodesta, which is a great place to be in. Look, the Browns have not reached the goals that we have wanted this team to reach yet. They have not made that truly deep playoff run that we're seeing Baltimore and Kansas City do right now. But they do feel good about the people that they have in place to be able to make that. If you don't believe that this is what Andrew Berry feels about the situation, go ahead, just listen to him and tell me if this doesn't sound like somebody who is very excited about the future with this head coach.
And that starts with Kevin. You know, Kevin, the way that he was able to lead and manage through challenges and adversity this year was absolutely phenomenal. And we have a smart, adaptable, emotionally intelligent leader who, you know, the crazy part is he's not even close to his ceiling. And this is a guy who hopefully in the next month should, you know, earn his, you know, second Coach of the Year award in his first 4 years as a head coach. And I know that our organization is in really good hands, both now and for the foreseeable future with him. And I really would be remiss if I didn't mention, you know, Bubba and Jim, who did a phenomenal job of revitalizing the kicking game for us, revitalizing the defense. They were phenomenal additions to the organization, and really pleased with, you know, really the work that those staffs did.
Yeah, so again, it's a effusive praise of Kevin Stefanski from Andrew Berry. He's clearly a fan of what Kevin has done. He clearly sees this season as a overall net positive for Kevin Stefanski. So anybody who thinks he's on the hot seat, I just don't get that vibe, right? If I felt like coming out this press conference, despite the fact that I would not be a fan of it, that Kev was on the hot seat, y'all know, I would say it. Like, I think Kev's on the hot seat. People get mad at me for pointing this stuff out. I'd like to be a straight shooter on this channel. I like to tell you what I feel like is actually happening, not what I want to happen, right? Even if it's something I want, or even if it's something I don't want, if I think it's going to happen or think it's not going to happen, I'm usually straight up with that. Well, not usually. I'm always straight up with that. That's my one thing. I'm being straight up with y'all right now. Whether you like Kevin or not, it don't seem like Kevin going anywhere. And honestly, I think that's the right decision. But that sounded like, to me, effusive praise. And there's going to be even more praise of Kevin Stefanski. But also another thing that a lot of people had questions about was the quarterback situation. I think people were worried about, well, asking questions about, like, what's Joe Flacco's status going to be and what the injury status is of one Deshaun Watson, as we know that's going to be important for this upcoming season. So let's hear Andrew Berry talk about both of those things.
You mentioned Joe Flacco. Just your takeaways on how he played, and I guess going forward, given all you guys had to deal with at the quarterback position, have you reevaluated maybe just that roster spot as a priority, the backup quarterback?
Okay, so those of you who can't hear the questions, because I know the questions aren't the loudest when they do these interviews. He's basically asking, what's the plan for backup quarterback, and is it going to be a priority this offseason?
Yeah, so starting with Joe, Tom, Joe, he played winning football for us. He did a great job of coming in and really playing at a high level that allowed us to go on a run at the end of the year, play really good football in December. Even if maybe we ended a little bit with a thud against Houston, in the wild card round, but really pleased with what Joe did on the field, pleased with who he was as a teammate. In terms of the quarterback room, we've always valued the quarterback position, and I think probably if you look at our history over the last 4 off seasons, we've always been towards the top of the league in backup quarterback expenditures or resources, whether it was Case for the first 2 years, obviously Jacoby, last year, and then even this year coming into the year with Dobbsy and Dorian. So it's something, I believe that, backup quarterback really is a top 30 position on the roster, Tom. And, we do believe in carrying 3, and that's something that we'll probably do moving forward.
So more directly, will you bring Joe Flacco down?
Look, I should say this. I should start by saying this. We'd absolutely love to have Joe back. He's a good quarterback, and but I guess maybe a little bit similar to, Jacoby last year. It really depends, right? Like I want to bring all of our our good players back, and but there are constraints to that. I'm really kind of both sides of the aisle, but would have no problem having Joe back.
Deshaun.
My feeling on that is basically he's saying if we can afford Joe Flacco, we'll bring back Joe Flacco. But if we can't, we're going to do what we did last year.
Deshaun coming along, and where do things stand in terms of moving forward with him? And is there any precedent for an NFL quarterback or another athlete that you're kind of going along their timeline for having suffered a fractured glenoid bone?
So she asks, is there any other parallel to Deshaun Watson's current injury right now, what the timeline should be at, and then just where is Deshaun Watson physically on his rehab from that shoulder injury?
So Mary Kay, more generally, Deshaun's progressing well. He's doing, everything in his power in terms of rehab. He's coming along well. We anticipate him being on a normal or potentially ahead of schedule time. I hesitate to say that because it still is early, but we're really pleased with his progress so far, and certainly looking forward to getting him back when he comes in the spring.
And do you have anybody that you have looked at that has suffered this same kind of fractured glenoid?
I'd say that's probably a better question for our medical staff, but probably the bigger takeaway is like we feel really good about the recovery. We don't. There's nothing that would suggest that there should be some type of limitation or anything like that moving forward.
All right. So basically he said, look, man, I don't think anybody's had this injury before, but it don't seem like it's going to be that big of a deal for him to come back from, which we kind of anticipated. This is a bone injury. Usually the bone injuries, from what we know, from my small understanding of sports medicine, the bone injuries are usually easier to come back from than the muscle tear issues, especially when it comes to the shoulder. Like if he needs like Tommy John stuff, because the muscle has to retain its flexibility, where bone is just rigid. It's easier to heal. And then apparently sometimes bones heal stronger once they're broken. So yeah, I think Deshaun's recovery is probably going to be fine going forward.
If you even think about, like Andy Reid might be my favorite. Here's someone when he was a 40-something-year-old first-time head coach in Philly, and you look at how he's evolved as a coach or leader, an offensive mind, to where he is in Kansas City. He never stayed stagnant, and we see those same characteristics in Kevin. And I would suggest that probably everybody in this room has seen him grow and evolve as a leader and coach over these past 4 years. How he led and managed the year this year, where I don't know how he wouldn't win Coach of the Year this year versus his first year were different. And I think the second part of it is like I always say, like, Kevin is like, he's the best of us. Like, on a just a human level, he like truly is the best of us. And I think that authenticity really, really allows him to be an exceptional leader for our organization. So it's really those two things combined that make me excited for the next several years.
Okay, again, man, I'm just saying. He comped him in his ceiling to Andy Reid. He said, hey, we see these traits in Andy Reid when he was a young guy coaching early in Philadelphia to who Andy's become. And we think that we see those same traits in Kevin Stefanski. By the way, did not have to say any of that, right? Like, he was not required to say any of it. He said it on his own volition, without being prompted, without being pushed into a corner, without feeling like he was forced to. It was completely, hey man, I just want to say this about Kevin. Very high opinion of Kevin Stefanski in his ceiling as a coach. And look, Kevin, just like Andy Reid, just like Kevin, had to grow as a coach. He wasn't always genius Andy Reid. He was somebody who always kind of had to figure out, okay, now I need input, because what I was running with Brett Favre in the 90s, that ain't running no more. I need to figure out what I need to do with these new quarterbacks coming out here, right? So he had to go to Kansas City. He got fired. Like, he had to learn and evolve and change and evolve and change and evolve. These coaches change and evolve a ton, right? A ton. That's why Brian Daboll could be one of the worst offensive coordinators when he was with the Cleveland Browns in like 2012, and then was the top coordinator in the league somehow 10 years later in Buffalo. These coaches evolve. And I think that's one of the things that Andrew Berry is really high on, is Kevin not just on him as a potential coach, well, not the potential, as the coach of this team, as the leader of the team, but also just as a person, because he then went on to say how Kevin's the best of us. I think they're high on Kevin Stefanski. I think Kevin's job security is pretty safe for the time being, and they seem pretty sure that he might get that second Coach of the Year honor, which, again, two-time Coach of the Year. I mean, you're starting to put him in special categories right there as a coach. But one of the things that he also talked about was Nick Chubb and where Nick Chubb is. I thought this part of the press conference was interesting, to know more about where Nick Chubb is, and to know about how Nick Chubb's been handling this. And it's all, look, Nick Chubb does the most incredible stuff, but since he does it all the time, it seems so mundane and routine to talk about. But let's highlight some Nick Chubb stuff here from the press conference that Andrew Berry was talking about.
You would have never guessed that Nick was out for the season with how he operated within the building. I mean, it was like he was doing 2-a-day practices for rehab. And I remember a quick story. We were in LA for the Rams game, and he was in the player suite. I happened to pop up in there, and the suite, it's like humongous. First of all, it's like it might be like 30 yards in length, and he was walking to go get food, but it's a pretty long walk. But he wasn't using his crutches, and I was like, Nick, are you being stubborn? And you're not. He's like, no, it actually like feels pretty good. Like they're saying. I was like, Nick, if you're supposed to be on your crutches, be on your crutches. Well, we come back from the trip, and then the next day, Dr. Voos, they had like put out this like tape because they were going to just test how he was, and they're like, oh no, officially, like he doesn't need to be on his crutches anymore. Like he had walked the whole thing. It was normal. And I share that, like, he's still very early in his rehab process, but like the tenacity at which he has attacked his rehab, and which he did everything in his power this year to heal himself, but also make a positive impact with the team. It culminated. You guys know he's not like a super talkative person, but for him to do the whole Batman thing, in front of the Jets game, it's like he wanted to do everything in his power to help the team win. So, I would, in terms of Nick moving forward, obviously I understand that's a little bit the elephant in the room. Nick, I can say for myself, no one in the organization, I understand our family. Nobody wants to see, that carry in Pittsburgh, be the last time he carries the ball for the Cleveland Browns. And, obviously there are things that we'll have to work through, but, that would not be our intention as well. We obviously will work to keep him on the team.
So, seems like to me pretty definitively that the Browns are interested in coming and getting Nick Chubb. I wouldn't be surprised if Nick Chubb got an extension this offseason, a small extension, but an extension. It will really make sense for both sides to work one out. Because Nick doesn't have enough years left in his contract to really work a restructure out, right? Like Deshaun has years left in that contract, so you can restructure to lower the cap number. But Nick doesn't have that many years left. I think he only has the 1 year left on his contract. So I think if I'm the Browns, I would give him an extension. One, you would probably be able to get it. You know what, he'll probably get what he's at 15 now. You could probably get him at like 17 at most. And you can work out an extension, keep Nick Chubb under a good cap number for the next couple of years. While also, if you're Nick Chubb, it would benefit you because you would be able to have that security of being like, okay, I don't have to just be 100% back year one. I can focus on year two as well, year three, hopefully year four, however long Nick Chubb wants to play. So it gives Nick Chubb the security he needs coming off of an ACL injury, a serious ACL and MCL injury. And it gives the Browns the financial flexibility to be able to push Nick's salary cap for this year down the road. Which is the same thing they're doing with Deshaun and Denzel and Miles, right? Like, so that would make a ton of sense to me to be able to do that. Maybe it's a 1 year extension or 2 year extension. It'd probably be like a 3 year extension or a 5 year extension with 2 of the last years being void years. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Browns worked out an extension, not just as a show of faith in Nick Chubb. One of the things that Andrew Berry also said in this press conference I felt like was interesting was that he already had a very high opinion of Nick Chubb as a person, and it tripled this season in how he handled himself. And I think it really went from Nick Chubb is a great running back, right? I think that's where the organization was on Nick Chubb a couple of years ago. Is that he's a great running back, but he's still a running back. And now it's Nick Chubb is one of the most important pieces to what we want to do from a culture standpoint, from a locker room standpoint, from an on the field standpoint. And that means that they're probably going to stick with him for a long while. They see him as something other than just a really good running back. They see him as an integral part to this team's identity on the field and off the field. And I think that's what Nick proved, is that hardworking, that's just what they want to have around. And I think that Nick Chubb, he's going to be here for a little while based off those comments. Now, ultimately, look, Andrew Berry's always looking for an upgrade, but now the upgrade isn't, is he better at running back, or is he as good as running back, or can he get as good at running back as Nick Chubb? That's not the question. The question is, hey, does he bring all that other stuff that Nick Chubb does bring? And that's going to make Nick Chubb a lot more difficult to replace again. He goes from just being a really good running back to an integral piece of the culture that we're trying to build here. And why is that important? Is because, well, you know what? Just listen to these comments from Andrew Berry, and I'll tell you why that culture stuff is important afterwards. But here's where he kind of talks about culture, who he is as a GM, and what he likes to do.
Like, you really establish your culture. Culture is people. Like, every year with the team. Like, I'd like to think that you just carry over everything from year to year, but there's just too much turnover to do it. And I think if your messaging or your approach just stays the same every year, it's just a different group of individuals. Like, if you look at the players that are in our locker room in 2023 versus 2020, it's just a totally different group of players, and it's a totally different group of coaches and support staff as well. So I think that's something that's a challenge each season. And one of the things I wrote down in my OneNote, moving forward was I think we have something here. I think we have something here with this group of players and some of the guys who are going to return, and that visual is going to be the thing that motivates me this offseason to do everything that I can to improve the team and make sure that we're in a position playing deep into the playoffs next year.
Big news there, right? One, that's the expectation to play deep into the playoffs next year. We kind of understood that. But two, they feel like they have something. They feel like they're close. They feel like they're almost there. And when you feel like you're close, you're not going to make moves with integral pieces to what you feel that locker room dynamic is. Now, I don't know where they feel like with Amari Cooper or anything like that, but I do know that they feel like, hey, with Nick Chubb, with Myles Garrett. And look, people don't give Deshaun Watson the credit that I think he should get for this, but Deshaun was a big of a piece to this locker room dynamic than anybody. Over the year, like he did a good job staying locked in after he got injured. He did a good job, with being locked in while he was there. Guys seemed to be focused around him. The energy seemed to be different. The stuff like going to West Virginia for training camp, the trips to Puerto Rico to work with the offense. Like he's done a fair share to build that locker room culture as well. And I think all of those things are locked in, and they feel like they're really, really close with that. So I think culture is going to be really important going forward for the Cleveland Browns when it comes to decision making. But that's my thoughts on this press conference. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.